Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beer Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not, and I'm bouncing. I'm bouncing. Hey, today we are working on Command and Care. Let me pull up this graphic here. Command and Care Book 3, His Middle by Morticia Knight. We love Morticia around here. I've heard tell that this cover is hot. I don't know. Two naked dudes. But I mean, I suppose in the scheme of naked dudes, that looks hot.
Pain us.
I'm trying here, all right? I'm trying. I could act like it's hot if you want. I mean, I'm an actor. Wow, that's hot. So hot. But I don't know. This whole series is rather unique in the fact that they're true standalones. You absolutely do not need to read the first two to get what's going on here. The only thing that ties them together is a common theme, and that seems to be daddy and care. I think. I'm guessing there. Let me read you the blurb here real quick. There we go. When a middle inherits a kink club, he's terrified. Can his dad's best friend rescue the business while also protecting him from danger? Unexpectedly, losing his father is devastating, but when Noah's dad leaves him the wildly successful club playpen, it's more responsibility than he can face. Noah's business skills are non-existent, and his interest in taking charge is zilch. The pressure to keep the club open has him scrambling to find someone to take over, but who does he dare trust with his father's legacy? Sawyer is stunned by the death of his best friend. His heart also aches for Noah, who insists he can't handle the obligation of running his dad's popular club. When Noah begs him to take on the role of manager, Sawyer is faced with an uncomfortable dilemma. He's been attracted to Noah from the moment he laid eyes on him. However, his best friend made Sawyer promise he'd never cross that forbidden line. As Noah and Sawyer dance around their growing desire, Sawyer struggles to remain true to his vow. Then outside forces interfere and threaten the future of the business, and Sawyer rushes in to keep Noah safe. Will Sawyer save the club before it's too late, and will he abandon his oath to his best friend and claim his boy? His Middle is the third book in the sizzling Command and Care M.M. Daddy romance series, but can be read as a standalone. Each installment features a different couple, and the series is connected through a common theme only. I got that right. If you like secret attractions, age play, and a dash of suspense, then you'll adore Morticia Knight's exciting tale of forbidden love and hidden danger. So, that's what we got going on there. We did Chapter 3 for Storytime. It's kind of the meet cute between these two. They've actually met before, but this is the first time on screen, and I think you're going to enjoy it. There's no real spoilers here or anything, but just know that Noah's father has already passed away. That is announced in the first chapter, so no spoilers there. Enjoy, have fun. Let me know what you think of this in the comments down below. Chapter 3. Noah glanced around the office, panic clawing at him as he tried to determine whether he had straightened it out enough in anticipation of Sawyer's arrival. Would Sawyer shake his head at him in disgust? Determine whether he had straightened it out enough in anticipation of Sawyer's arrival. Would Sawyer shake his head at him in disgust? Tell him how disappointed he was that he couldn't believe how badly Noah had fucked up his best friend's business? Noah chewed on his thumbnail. Yeah, wow. Was that he couldn't believe how badly Noah had fucked up his best friend's business? Noah choked on his... Probably should. Was that he couldn't believe how badly Noah had fucked up his best friend's business? Noah chewed on his thumbnail, unable to sit still. He kept twisting around in the desk chair, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Sawyer had never come across as mean or judgmental. Whenever he was in town and hung out at the club, or when he'd come to the house, Sawyer was friendly and cheery, fun, super nice, and smoking hot. His dad would have flipped his shit if he'd known that Noah had been perving after his buddy since he was 14. Noah yelped as a loud bang on the door sounded before it burst open. Noah clutched his chest as Arlen slapped a hand to his mouth. "Oh, sorry." Open. Noah clutched his chest as Arlen slapped a hand to his mouth. "Oh, dude, sorry." Arlen winced. "I was just checking how things were going back here." Noah waved his hand around. "Look, how do you think it's going? It's a fucking disaster. I got here at 6 a.m. after barely 3 hours of sleep, have been at it ever since, and after 5 hours, this is what I have to show for it." Arlen gazed around the room, his brow furrowed as he tapped on his chin with one finger. Well, it's not terrible. At least everything's in piles and the file cabinet drawers are closed for a change. He scratched his head. You couldn't get all these papers put away or something? So it doesn't appear as if... He cleared his throat, then glanced away. Noah narrowed his eyes. Doesn't appear as if what? Arlen regarded him with a shrug. That you haven't touched anything or done one thing in the 3 months your dad has been gone? Noah's jaw fell open and he clutched his hair. That's what it looks like? Seriously? He flopped against the back of the chair. Clutched his hair. That's what it looks like? Seriously? He flopped against the back of the chair. He's going to think I'm the biggest loser. Arlen closed the door behind him, then stepped all the way into the room. He sat on the chair across from Noah. Noah, listen to me. Sawyer is not going to think that at all. He's going to be on your side. Besides me, he's the only person who will get what an overwhelming and horrible time.
He's the only other person.
Sawyer is not going to think that at all. He's going to be on your side. Besides me, he's the only other person who will get what an overwhelming and horrible time this has been for you. Arlen reached across the desk and held out his hand. Noah grabbed it as if it were a lifeline. Out of nowhere, you lost your dad and was put in charge of a huge business with zero training or expertise. You've had no support other than my lame attempts. And was put in charge of training or expertise. You've had no support other than my lame attempts. If anything, everyone's been working against you and treating you like shit. Arlen grunted. If nothing else, he can stand up to all the assholes and their disrespectful behavior like Dirk, Ben, Eddie, Miguel, Kim. I don't think Kim is being a jerk. He's always been very nice to me. He's just super flaky. And you told me your dad was planning on letting him go, right? Arlen sighed. It's not about how nice people are or if they're your friends. It's business. Arlen's eyes went wide. Except for me. You can't fire me. Noah's jaw dropped again. As if I'd fire you. He gave Arlen's hand a squeeze and let go. How could I fire you? You're practically the only person in this place doing his job. Arlen grinned. I am amazing, aren't I? Noah rolled his eyes. Then prove it. What can I do to save this disaster area before Sawyer gets here? Arlen pursed his lips as he glanced around again. He returned his attention to Noah. When's he getting here? Noah glanced at the Mickey Mouse clock on the wall and groaned. He chuckled shakily. Any minute? Arlen's eyebrows shot up. In that case, absolutely nothing. Noah whimpered. Great. Just perfect. He clutched his stomach. God, I hope he doesn't get mad or ask me why I'm so pathetic. I won't be able to stand it. Arlen frowned. Where's Daddy Garth in all this? Why isn't he here helping, or at least lending some support? Noah looked down. He'd honestly been wondering the same thing, not for the first time, but since he already knew how much Arlen disliked Garth, he hadn't brought up the subject. There was only so much conflict he could handle at one time. Actually, he couldn't handle any, so he'd allowed his relationship with Garth to drift on and on without complaint. He lifted his eyes and was met with Arlen's reproachful expression. Oh, he's had a lot of reproachful expression. Oh, he's had a lot going on at work. I haven't had much time to play, and the one time recently that I spent the night at his place, all he wanted to do was spank me when all I wanted was for him to hold me. The guy's a first-rate dickwad. Sorry, but I said what I said. Arlen shrugged. He doesn't seem like a real daddy to me, at least not one who's into age play. Noah didn't want to talk about it anymore. He was already worried enough with Sawyer's impending arrival. The last thing he needed was to get distracted by his ever-present doubts about his relationship. Yeah, well, Noah sighed. I'll worry about it later. He gestured to the desk. Right now I've got this shit to contend with. The door flew open, and Dirk poked his head in the office with a scowl. He regarded Arlen. Aren't you supposed to be at the front? I'm busy slicing up fruit. I don't have time to deal with people. Arlen crossed his arms. I haven't started my shift yet. The club doesn't even open for another hour. Then why the fuck are you even here? Arlen batted his eyelashes. I ask myself the same thing about you every day. Noah cleared his throat. The last thing he needed was two of his employees going at it when Sawyer arrived. Hey, guys, come on. Let's be nice. Dirk grunted. Whatever. They regarded Noah. You're such a pussy. Noah gasped, his mouth opening and closing like a fish as he fought to squeeze out a response. Arlen shot to his feet, jabbing his finger at Dirk. Don't you fucking talk to him like that, you raging asswipe! The beefy and much taller Dirk got up in Arlen's face, his cheeks turning scarlet. You're not my fucking boss, you little piece of shit! That's enough! Oh, nope, this is Sawyer. Turning scarlet. You're not my fucking boss, you little piece of shit! That's enough! Noah jumped, and everyone else fell silent at the sound of Sawyer's booming voice. Noah gulped. Damn it. Sawyer regarded him, his features softening for a bare second before hardening again as he returned his attention to the two men. Both of you need to leave so I can speak with Noah. He pointed to Dirk, then Arlen. Neither of you are to say one word to each other. Understand? I don't have to listen to you, Dirk snarled. Noah cleared his throat. Actually, Sawyer's taking over management, so yes, you do. Sawyer jerked his head around and stared at Noah with a puzzled expression, but he seemed to quickly shake it away. He went back to frowning at Dirk. That's correct. So if you plan on continuing to work here, you need to listen to what I say. Dirk grunted, then left the office grumbling something under his breath. Arlen glanced between Noah and Sawyer. Would it be all right if I left to grab some lunch? My shift doesn't start for an hour, and I feel like I'm leaving Noah in good hands. He tittered uneasily. Sawyer regarded Noah. Would that be acceptable? I apologize if I overstepped my boundaries with your other employee, but his behavior was out of line. Arlen piped in. He was born out of line and has been treating Noah like shit. The corners of Sawyer's mouth quirked. I remember you from before. He gestured between him and Noah. You two have been friends for quite a while, right? Arlen nodded with a smile that between him and Noah. You two have been friends for quite a while, right? Arlen nodded with a smile, then stuck out his hand. Yeah, my name's Arlen. Nice to meet you, Sawyer. We were never formally introduced. Sawyer took Arlen's hand and gave it a firm shake. No, we weren't. Thanks for having Noah's back. Sawyer turned to Noah again. Can Arlen leave? Sawyer turned to Noah again. Can Arlen leave for lunch, or would you like him to stay? Noah sat up straighter, only just realizing he'd been slumped in the chair. He can go to lunch, that's fine. Arlen gave a thumbs up with a grin behind Sawyer's back. Awesomeness. I'll see you guys later. As soon as Arlen left, Sawyer turned back to face him, advancing with his arms stretched open. Once he reached his side, Sawyer leaned down and wrapped Noah in an embrace. I'm so sorry, Noah. This must be so tough for you. Sawyer gave him a hearty squeeze before rising again. He gazed down at Noah, his eyes filled with compassion, a small glimmer catching the light. I can't believe he's gone. That was all it took. Noah broke down into big, ugly sobs, covering his face with his hands as all the stress, sadness, and hopelessness unleashed. He barely registered Sawyer, enfolding him in a hug again, but no longer had the strength to fight, to keep it together for the sake of the business, those around him, and his own sanity. At first, Noah had tried to resist the closeness. His embarrassment over losing in the first few minutes of Sawyer's arrival was huge.
Stop over losing control.
Sanity. At first, Noah had tried to resist the closeness. His embarrassment over losing control in the first few minutes of Sawyer's arrival was huge. While he didn't think there was anything wrong with his feelings or in finally giving in to them, he could have at least tried to hold it together until he was alone. Now Sawyer could see what a true mess he was, and that his best friend...
Now Sawyer would see.
Giving in to them, he could have at least tried to hold it together until he was alone. Now Sawyer would see what a true mess he was, and that his best friend had raised a weak son, one who was incapable of protecting his legacy. But as the minutes passed, and Sawyer held on, Noah relaxed in the comforting embrace and rested his head on Sawyer's shoulder. His loud sobs gradually diminished to hitched breaths and obnoxious sniffling. Noah rubbed his shirt-covered arm under his nose. He mused that he'd better invest in some more professional-looking shirts. The one he was wearing was the end of his minimal button-up collection. "Hey, let me grab you a tissue." Sawyer gave him one last squeeze, then rose. Noah couldn't make eye contact, so he kept his gaze pinned on his lime-green chucks. He'd wanted to dress nicely for his first meeting with Sawyer, and the high tops were the only pair of shoes he had left that didn't have scuff marks or holes. Upon reflection, however, his choice seemed less mature than he'd been aiming for. His dad had always come to the club in silk shirts and dress slacks, the consummate businessman. Initially, Noah believed that simply changing from a t-shirt to a long-sleeve button-up would be enough, but the truth was, his choice of apparel wouldn't magically cure his inability to run a kink club. Noah, do you have any tissue in here?" Noah gave another hearty sniff, his voice cracking as he spoke. "Sorry, no. There's a roll of paper towels on the file cabinet, though." He pointed to the one across the room next to the door. The lone cabinet held all the member files. Unfortunately, Noah couldn't find the key to that one, so he had no idea who'd paid their dues and who hadn't.
Stop. So had no idea.
I'm leaving it.
Ah, good. Gotcha.
Couldn't find the key to that one, so he had no idea who'd paid their dues and who hadn't. Sawyer returned with a sheet from the roll and handed it to him. Noah accepted the offering, but wouldn't meet his gaze. While he swiped at his cheeks and blew his nose, Sawyer perched on the edge of the desk next to him and folded his hands. "Take a few deep breaths, Noah. Everything's going to be okay." Noah peered up at Sawyer, calmed by his soothing voice. Noah peered up at Sawyer, calmed by his soothing voice. He was met with Sawyer's soft smile. "Thanks." Noah sucked in a deep breath and straightened his shoulders. He could do this. He could move forward. Hope had once again blossomed inside him. Sawyer was smart. He could move forward. Hope had once again blossomed inside him. Sawyer was a smart, successful businessman. He was a daddy, loved the lifestyle, and wouldn't make Noah feel like an idiot. Sawyer was a good man. And what this club deserves. Noah held a trembling lip at bay. The club certainly didn't deserve his sorry ass. "I can tell you're beating yourself up, Noah. It's written all over your face." Sawyer sniffed as well, and Noah was reminded how much his dad's death must be affecting him, too. His passing is such a shock. No one could have done any better than you have under the circumstances. I know you've had no guidance, otherwise you wouldn't have asked me here. You need to cut yourself a break. Asked me here. You need to cut yourself a break. Noah hugged himself. Sawyer was such a nice person, and seemed sincere. Maybe he had been blaming himself too much for the state of the club. "Thanks. I have a feeling I'll be telling you that a lot." He gave a one-shouldered shrug. "I guess I have been getting pretty down on myself. But I just don't understand why he left the club to me, of all people. It's not as if he didn't know I was clueless when it came to business things. I used to have to ask him for help all the time when I did my taxes or needed to handle the more boring parts of my business." "That's right," said Sawyer. "You design t-shirts. Am I remembering that correctly?" "Yeah," Noah snorted. "Well, used to design t-shirts. I had to put my online store on pause. I haven't exactly been feeling all that artistic lately. And anyway, who the hell has time?" Sawyer's brow creased. "Anyway, who the hell has time?" Sawyer's brow creased. "Okay, let's address your concerns. Why do you find it surprising that your father would leave his business to his only child?" Noah arched his eyebrows. "Oh, well, I guess when you put it that way," he frowned. "But still, wouldn't he realize I'd eventually run the place into the ground?" "No, I think he figured that Jonathan would have continued in his role as manager while you signed the paychecks, handled the finances, and basically behaved as an owner. Sawyer crossed his arms. You see, Noah, many businesses operate without the owner on the premises day in and day out. It depends on how the chain of command is set up and how tasks are delegated. I'm sure your father assumed you would be less hands-on than he was. Sawyer lowered his head, pausing before raising it again. I'm also sure he assumed he'd be around for many years to come, and that what you're struggling through right now would be a non-issue at that point. Noah hadn't thought of things that way either. Of course his dad didn't expect to go the way he did, let alone when he did. You're totally right. Man, I just wish Jonathan hadn't been such a dick about the whole thing. Sawyer nodded. Tell me about that situation. Why did Jonathan leave? Noah rolled his eyes. Oh my God. He had a complete meltdown when he found out I inherited the club. He was ranting and raving, shouting that I was going to ruin everything and that he should have gotten the club. He had a complete meltdown when he found out I inherited the club. He was ranting and raving, shouting that I was going to ruin everything and that he should have gotten the club. He said my dad had promised it would be his someday, and that I should sign it over. He offered me a 10% cut if I would, said I'd have that income, wouldn't have to do anything all day but make my stupid t-shirts and pet my llama. Sawyer coughed into his fist. Llama.
y Casio.
Sawyer coughed into his fist. Llama. Yeah, I have a llama that I board in Nicasio. I sometimes take him when I go camping. Bob carries all the gear, plus he's super cute and fluffy. Noah gave Sawyer a sheepish smile. Llamas are my favorite animal. Sawyer rubbed his forehead with his thumb and forefinger. Okay, a real, live llama. He straightened and cleared his throat. That's actually very sweet. I'm glad to hear you still enjoy the outdoors. However, Jonathan is full of shit. I know for a fact your father never promised him the club. I bet that snake thought he could intimidate you into signing over your birthright. Sawyer shook his head. I was never a big fan of his. Intimidate you into signing over your birthright. Sawyer shook his head. I was never a big fan of his, but your father insisted he was a great manager and that he needed him. However, I always sensed there was something off about the guy. Noah nodded. Yeah, I stayed out of his way when Dad was alive. Noah drew his eyebrows together. So, you think he was trying to trick me? It was stupid, really. I totally would have kept him on since I clearly have no clue how to run this club. It seems like he fucked himself over by freaking out. Sawyer massaged his chin, and more than once since he had arrived, Noah tried to force himself to stop staring at how handsome Sawyer was, how masculine, how he filled out the form-fitting long-sleeve stretch t-shirt, the royal blue of the fabric highlighting the bright blue of Sawyer's eyes. Noah's gaze landed on Sawyer's long, graceful fingers as they moved over Sawyer's chin. He licked his lips. What would they feel like wrapped around his... Noah, did you hear me? Noah jumped in his seat, choking on his spit as he tried to gather his thoughts. "Oh, sorry. I sort of drifted there." Heat flushed his skin. You know, not getting enough sleep and all that. Sawyer narrowed his gaze as if he could see right into Noah's brain and spot the naked truth, the deep, dark secret that Noah had hidden not only from him but his dad, the secret where Noah would give anything if Sawyer would claim him as his boy. But for all he knew, Sawyer wasn't attracted to him in the slightest, and maybe he already had a boy waiting for him at home. He still knew very little of his dad's best friend's private world. "Well," Sawyer said, "that's one of the first things we need to address. Your lack of rest. That's not healthy." He crossed his arms again. Regarding Jonathan, who knows what was going through his addled brain. It could certainly be that his pride was hurt so much over the situation that the paycheck was secondary. Plenty of people allow their egos to overrule their common sense. Like before, Noah hadn't thought of the situation that way. Sawyer was already making things better in the mere few minutes since he had arrived. That's true. He was kind of an idiot. Sawyer chuckled. That's the spirit. But let's move on from him. He's a non-issue anymore, so let's focus on what needs to be done. He's a non-issue anymore, so let's focus on what needs to be done. Noah grinned. Cool. Where do we start? We start with me finding a place to stay. I was going to look into an Airbnb outside of the city so I don't have to pony up for a pricey hotel. Noah cleared his throat. Actually, I sort of assumed you'd be staying at my place. It's huge and empty. Noah sighed. Really, really empty. Sawyer lowered his head, shifting on the desk. His jaw ticked as he stared at the floor. After a few moments, he lifted his gaze. I wouldn't want to put you out. Noah snorted. Hardly. I could have a small village living there and probably wouldn't notice. He swallowed hard. I was thinking I should sell the place. I don't know. It seems silly to have such a huge house living all alone, but at the same time, Dad loved it so much that it feels like a betrayal to let it go. He shook his head. I have no idea what to do. Sawyer placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. Nothing right now. It's too soon after everything, and it's best to tackle one thing at a time. What needs to be handled first is the club. Noah was back to stuffing down his emotions. Yeah, okay. He locked eyes with Sawyer. But I was serious about you staying there, even if I'm asking for trouble. It's only fair since you dropped everything to come help me. Serious about you staying there, even if I'm asking for trouble. It's only fair since you dropped everything to come help me. I can't expect you to pay to stay somewhere when I have plenty of room. Sawyer's jaw twitched away as he regarded Noah, his intense gaze masking whatever jumble of issues he might be analyzing. What about your daddy? Wouldn't he have a problem with another daddy living under the same roof as you? If you were mine, I'd certainly disapprove. Noah folded his hands in his lap. Why did Sawyer have to put that thought in his head? He was on the verge of popping a boner thinking about Sawyer going all growly and protective over him. Shit. Why hadn't he broken it off with Garth already? Sadly, he knew the answer. It was a combination of not wanting to be alone and hating confrontation. Sawyer arched his eyebrows. So, you do have a daddy? Noah slumped down in the chair. Yeah. A burst of what Noah swore was disappointment flashed across Sawyer's features before it disappeared. Then it's out of the question. He gave Noah a tight smile. I'll look into the Airbnb. Noah wanted to shout out that he wasn't in love with Garth, that he'd been meaning to break it off, but knew that wouldn't go over well. Sawyer was a decent guy and would view Noah as a jerk for doing something like that, would rightly assume it was so Noah could move Sawyer into the house anyway, not the impression he wanted to leave on his crush. Sawyer rose and glanced across. Sawyer into the house anyway, not the impression he wanted to leave on his crush. Sawyer rose and glanced around the office. After idly wandering over to a couple of cabinets, checking out the bookshelves, and trailing his fingers over the piles of papers on the desk, he regarded Noah again. "All right, here's the plan for now. Let me get settled today, then we'll jump in early tomorrow morning, say 9. A stab of disappointment tore through Noah. In his mind, he had envisioned bringing Sawyer to the house, then catching up with him over a pizza and some beer, then discussing how much Sawyer should get paid for taking over the club, which in Noah's mind meant whatever Sawyer wanted. Okay, sure. 9. After the whole accommodations fail, he didn't dare try and slip in a "let's grab dinner later" move. Sawyer smiled, the previous warmth in his expression returning. "Sounds good. You get some rest and stop worrying. We'll figure everything out." He turned to leave, then paused mid-step. He slowly turned around, his brow knitted as if he wasn't sure he should speak. "I should also mention one more thing before we get started." Sawyer locked eyes with him. "I appreciate your faith in me, but I didn't agree to become the official manager of Playpen. I'm here as a consultant, but I'll be certain there's a capable manager in... I'm the official manager of Playpen. I'm here as a consultant, but I'll be certain there's a capable manager in place before I leave. All right?" "All right?" All right. No, it wasn't fucking all right. It was a fucking disaster. His disappointment went from a stab to a fatal blow. Noah's voice cracked as he attempted to respond. He cleared his throat but couldn't conjure up much enthusiasm as he spoke. "Sure. Whatever you think is best." Sawyer pressed his lips together, then nodded. "Everything really will be fine, Noah. I promise." Noah sniffed. "Okay. I trust you." After giving him another smile, Sawyer left. As much as Noah didn't want to feel sorry for himself, he decided to give in to the dark abyss of self-pity. Then he'd move on his... Feel sorry for himself, he decided to give in to the dark abyss of self-pity. Then he'd put on his big boy pants, follow Sawyer's orders, and get some rest. Maybe tomorrow he wouldn't feel so shitty. Hey, it could happen.